welcome to Aliens versus Predator, a limited review show where we will be reviewing every single film in the Alien and Predator franchise. On today's episode, we are going to be talking Predator 2. I'm Chris Waterman, one of your hosts, joined again by the Predator, Mr. Adam Gumbert from Lexington, Kentucky. Is that your
Please
best
watch the
Predator
video.
impression?
Well, because he calls him pussy face. So
Yeah,
I was trying to do something.
We
Please
got
don't do that again. Please don't do that again.
I know I'm all thrown off and clammy here. And then we got Mr. George Arevalo from Miami, Florida.
I'm ready.
Little shout out to El Scorpio, who is behind you. Breakout character for George in this film. So, Predator 2. I always like to start off with a little bit of trivia before we kind of deep dive into the impressions. But I actually want to get impressions first, and then we'll do some trivia and we'll kind of go through our categories. So, this was a wild movie. I really enjoyed watching this in party, which is what we're trying to do for all these with everybody, because there was a lot of emotions that kind of ebbed and flowed as we made our way through this film, which is a hell of a movie in a lot of different ways. So, because it's George first time seeing it, gotta go to you first. Like, give me your initial impressions with Predator 2.
I mean, I don't know. I don't even know where to begin. It's a shame that it's been a while since we actually sat down and watched it. You know, we're coming in a few weeks, a month almost, maybe
For 3 weeks, probably.
3
yeah.
weeks, probably or so. But what a ride! It's got the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. I think we mentioned when we were talking about this mid movie. But holy shit, it was not boring. That it was a lot of things, but boring is definitely not one of them. This is not a good movie, right? It's not a good movie, but it's also a great movie at the same time. So I don't like it for me. I just liked how they embraced the crazy. They just like I don't give a shit. We can do whatever we want with this movie, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. It's not gonna make a whole lot of sense. We'll put stuff in the right places, but you'll have a good time. And I had a good time from start to finish. There's definitely some weird stuff in this movie, but the lows don't last long enough because I don't know, you just ride the wave of the highs that you can kind of get through the weak parts of the movie and thoroughly enjoyed myself. This shit was fucking bananas. And no, we're not really talking rankings, but after taking some time to really think about it, like I'm not gonna lie, I enjoyed this more than the first Predator movie. I just did, like for all the wrong reasons, but I fucking did.
I think that's it's totally fair way to look at it. It is bonker. I mean, the first movie has like a little more of like what you would expect from like an action movie of like the 80s, and like although this technically came out in 1990, I feel like it very much is like a little bit of that holdover, like it's in that weird transitionary like period of action movies. And I feel like this movie like is its own damn thing in so many ways. Like there are some tropes for sure, but like, whoa boy, it goes all over the place.
Yeah, I feel like the first one is a solid movie. This is an experience. It's not a good movie, but it's a great experience. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no rhyme or reason, structure. Like all that shit goes out the windows. But man, are you in for it for sure?
Adam, how about you? Give me some thoughts.
Yeah, this movie's wild. That's a word that I would use to describe Predator 2. I'm kind of with George. Like there are things in this movie that are awful and that make no sense, and the movie changes tone about 3 times. But man, there's some fun Predator stuff in the movie. He gets all his gadgets in this movie. The Predator himself is insane, and that's awesome. The rest of it, I don't know what's going on, but it's a weird one for me because again, I love all that the cool gadget stuff and the things that make the Predator cool. We were telling George about happened in this movie first, and it's a weird movie to put it in. But yeah, it's fun to watch. I'll definitely say that. It's like Fast and Furious. It's fun to watch no matter what movie you're watching. You'll have a good time.
Yeah, I mean, so I think you said like it changes tone like quite a few times. Like it does have that like it goes from being like, all right, this is going to be like a mystery film, and then it turns into a revenge film, and then it turns into like some weird government conspiracy like film where like Danny Glover is trying to get the truth out, and then it kind of just derails at the end into like a mano y mano, like they kind of in a weird way like just do an extended version of like the final fight with like Schwarzenegger with Danny Glover. So yeah, definitely does switch gears quite a bit. um so here's a couple of little bits of trivia. Apparently this movie was recut, and this kind of speaks to what we were just talking about, over 20 times, mostly because of like the graphic violence and like just gross like mutilations and things like that. John McTiernan didn't come back because his fee was going to be $2 million. That was director of the original Predator film. The studio wanted to keep the budget the same. And Schwarzenegger largely same thing, like said no because of dispute over money. He only wanted 250,000 extra bucks to be in the sequel, and the studio didn't want to pony up. So
that's a lot of money back then, though, too.
It was. Some of the Predator's sounds were recycled from Tremors, believe it or not, which I think is super interesting. The reason that we have all of the gadgets and fun stuff in this film is, I guess, the special effects team, which also, again, I should say, included Stan Winston, were given more time to come up with everything. If you recall in our last discussion, they had to like kind of throw some stuff together at the last minute to redesign the creature. Having more time to think about stuff, they were able to have a little bit more fun with that. Last little bit of trivia. A one-armed stuntman played the Predator in wide shots after it gets his arm cut off, which I thought was kind of cool. So they actually found a one-armed stuntman to kind of pull off that effect of having one less limb. So with all that being said, and it's a little bit of trivia, let's get into our kind of list that we go with from film to film. First of which is best death. So best death in the film. Who do you think has the best death? And if nobody has one off the top of the head, I could definitely do mine. Like it's pretty easy for me.
Yeah, I can go last on this one. I need to refresh my memory on some of that stuff.
I love Bill Paxton's death in this, where he's like, facing off in the Predator. All the lights have gone off in the subway. He's just firing magazine after magazine of his 9mm. That looks futuristic, but not really. Like it looks super fake. Like nowadays, probably back in the day, people were like, "Oh shit, look at that badass cop gun!" Like it looks horrible now. And then he picks up a fucking golf ball and throws it at the Predator, which inexplicably is just on the floor, and then a machete, and the Predator puts out the claw and says, "Want some candy?" I love that whole entire sequence. It's great. The Predator's talking shit, and Bill Paxton completes the trifecta in that film. Killed by a Terminator in '84, killed by an alien in '86, and killed by a Predator in 1990. Finally, one of I think two actors that can claim that honor. The other one being Lance Henriksen, who played Bishop in. I don't want to say too much, but like played Bishop in Aliens, and he is shot in the police shootout and Terminator. So that's mine. I just love it. I think it's really cool. That whole sequence is fun. You see the Predator drop down onto the subway and kind of claw his way. Like I love it. Everyone's got a fucking gun on the subway. It's just bananas.
All the civilians have a gun. Make the point.
Yeah. All the have a gun. Fucking commuters. Like everybody just pulls out their gun, and then the lights go out, and it's just chaos. And it's just the icing on the cake is Bill Paxton facing off against the Predator. So that's my pick.
I kind of cheat, I suppose. Actually, no, I'm going to stick with the one. I call him Big Willie. Apparently, his name's King Willie.
Big Willie.
Just we get the cool shot of him jumping. He's talking about the Predator. He knows it's a thing. It jumps off the building into the puddle. So we like, oh, water messes with the invisibility. That's cool. And then he pulls out a sword cane, I believe, is what King Willie has
with a cobra head. Yeah.
And it just gets massacred, and it's so great. It's because that character. Like they build him up so much, and he's just like a dude with fake dreads who gets murdered by the Predator in like half a second. But
also, Haiti is the country of origin for voodoo, not Jamaica. Like they don't really explain like why. Like,
well, this is future LA, so things are a little different.
Okay,
Warzone LA.
Yeah, wars. God, that's the thing we'll get to, how this movie setting makes no sense. But yeah, I just like King Willie. He's a cool character, and him getting murdered, pulling out the sword cane. Like, all right, this is fun.
But it's a great shot too, because he's screaming and like the camera kind of like, well, it's not really the camera pulls back. It's more the Predator walks away, and like it's like quickly made apparent that it's like his severed head and spinal cord. But yeah, very cool. I love it. That's a good pick. How about you?
So I was torn between 3, and because of Adam, now I'm torn between 2. So I'm gonna go with both of them because do what I want. One has more significance. The other one was just cool. But Goldtooth, the dude that gets he's get the net, like he gets kind of like tortured to death or whatever. He gets tied onto that net. I think that's the first time we really see that thing really like in action, that I can remember anyways, which is really cool how that thing just has infinite amount of force and will eventually cut through you. Because if you think about it, having a net that can basically constrict you and slice you at the same time sounds like a pretty awful way to go.
It does.
Yeah. And I think probably the next worst way to go in this movie was Gary Busey's character getting sliced right in half. Which is also pretty cool because you get to see that's when he throws out
the smart disc, right?
Yeah,
I think it's awesome.
So he, seeing the Predator use some more weaponry this time around was definitely pretty cool. Though it makes me wonder why he doesn't use some of it more often. But you do see a little bit more. Or we can talk about that in a little bit, but.
Yeah, right on. I mean, I think both of those are cool picks. I mean, they really ramp up the gadgetry in this this film. Every scene, I feel like you're getting like something new. I mean, you still have the classic like plasma cannon and stuff, but the net, the disc, and the spear are all like really, really cool additions that we get in this one. That brings me to the next category, which is who is your favorite character that isn't the main character? I mean, you can, if you want to say Danny Glover's character, it's fine. I feel like he's not as established as like, say, like, like Ripley, who we get like over and over. So, but yeah, pick a favorite. I mean, I know who George.
I wonder who George is going to
be. Listen, man, it's a Scorpio for me because this guy just didn't give a fuck. He was so coked up. He was ready for anything, and he was the epitome of this future LA where it's just a war zone out there, absolutely just madness, and this guy was at the center of it. I think he's the leader. So I mean, look, doesn't get more badass than this guy. On a serious note, my favorite character is actually the Predator, and this is kind of what I was going to talk about, that I was kind of segueing into, is this Predator. I mean, they're trophy hunters, right? And they like a challenge. But this one in particular, again, I don't know what relation they have to each other. I don't know how that works. I'm sure that'll come about. But this one, I felt he had all these gadgets, but I feel like he only used them when the opponent like rose to the challenge. You get what I'm saying? Like he's gonna try to make things as difficult on himself, for sport, as long as he can until he meets a foe that is worthy of using the next level of weaponry. Gary Busey's character, Danny Glover. So I feel like this one has a more interesting story arc because they really bring the best out of him and eventually, obviously, beat him, but not without him pulling out all the stops throughout the course of the movie, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, like it's real cool how we know he sees in heat, and then they code everything in the isotope or whatever it is, so he can't see heat. And he's like, all right, let me go through the 8 other spectrums I have because I have to now. So let me go ahead and show up and show out. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, it's almost like he's kind of hoping to find this particular challenge that's going to make him, take his stuff to the next level, which I thought was pretty interesting from a Predator, right? Like it's a you're hunting for sport, you're hunting for the challenge, not because you need to. and I felt like that dynamic. I don't know how intentional it was with the way that this movie was written and put together, but I thought it was a nice touch, be it intentional or not.
I think you nailed it. Like that. I mean, they do really good with like adding to the lore. I think that's like one of the best things that comes out of this movie for sure. And to your point, like, so once he does switch spectrums and sees that people, like, he could just easily throw a bomb or start blasting with like the plasma cannon. What does he do? He pulls out the spear and he jumps right into the middle of everybody and just starts like shish kebabbing people and like whacking them. And like, I mean, he definitely doesn't see anybody. He doesn't break out the big guns in that fight until Danny Glover shows up and starts like, fucking shit up with all his arsenal. He's got his little grenade launcher, M16, and all that shit. Yeah. So I think you hit the nail on the head. It's a good choice. Unconventional, but I love it. Adam, how about you? Favorite character?
Well, I want to say Bill Paxton, but I already said Bill Paxton, I think, in the past, so I got to skip that. Mine actual is, and I think I was looking up the name. Is it Silverback? Is the name of the other predators we meet at the very end of the movie. I think that's the main one that gives him the pistol. I think it's Silverback for some reason. I might be incorrect. But the other predators that show up, just because, again, this movie's all about lore. It's like, all right, we know they're warriors. It's like, oh, there's a society of them, and they really care about honor. Like, again, we was telling you guys when we were watching it, it seems weird that he gets a pirate pistol from like 1758 or whatever the date on it is. But there's a comic to explain that there was a predator who met a human back in the 1700s and they had a thing and he gave him his pistol, whatever. And then they bring that into this movie and it's like, all right, that's cool. We have like a hierarchy. Like he's an older predator and he's like, all right, you've beaten one. I respect you like I respected the last guy. So here's his pistol because this is all about respect. And I like how because we know like when he doesn't kill the pregnant lady, what's her name, Chris? I can't remember her name. She's actually
the detective, right? The cop,
the detective, right? The one who's actually the right race.
Was it Conchita character. Or something? Yeah, Maria Conchita Alonso, Detective Leona Cantrell.
Leona,
that's what it is. Okay. Yeah, so we know like he didn't kill her because she's pregnant, and he doesn't kill people who aren't unarmed. But then the fact that we get even deeper, it's like, oh, here's someone who's older and is all about honor and respect. He's like, hey, you get to live, you've earned it, and here's a reward for it too. And so I like that whole group, and especially like the older predator that's at the head of that group.
Very nice. Good pick as well. I mean, yeah, like again, I can't emphasize this enough. I think the lore that we get like in this movie, like, I mean, that universe gets so much bigger and like almost like all positive ways in my mind. It's the first time we see like all that like it's not just humans that these things are hunting either. We get that huge trophy wall like with the alien skull. Like that's a cool reveal at the end. Like you see like the xenomorph like skull there. So like talk about like little like teasers like before the MCU for like shared universes. Like that made people go bananas. And it what took like another 10 years?
Yeah,
like before that get paid off. But that was really, really, really cool. But yeah, I think like having the other, and they all look different too, right? Like I think they really did a good job showing like the different personalities, like for some pretty quick shots, like at the end there, with like the predators that become uncloaked.
I also thought it was kind of cool. I mean, I assume this is where it's gonna go, but it almost like a little bit of a ranking system. Like, dude, this is a predator that was just hunting humans, we have the ones that can take these things down. So this guy ain't shit. You haven't seen anywhere near the elite of our species, right? So
yeah, I'm pretty sure like I mean, I don't say this with 100% certainty, but like 90% certainty, it's supposed to be a young predator, like in this film. Like it's supposed to be like a younger,
an adolescent,
inexperienced, like it's like a first, or like early hunt, like in the career, for lack of a better word, I guess. I don't know, of the predator.
Which also explains, we've seen in these last two movies that they're all about honor, and then they lose and they bitch out and they're like, you know what, I'm going to kill everybody and blow myself up. And they get real spiteful at the end.
Yeah.
But the elder, not at all. He's like, no, you're good, man. I've been through this. I've been around for 400 years apparently, so it's all good.
Yeah, we'll talk about the ending sequence a little bit more because I do want to cover that. Like I think it's an awesome conclusion. Like I love just like the last 30 minutes of this movie are fantastic. My favorite character is Torn between two. I'm gonna go with Bill Paxton's character, which seems like a cop out, but I love him. Like he's like the new guy that wants to prove himself, and like I mean, just fuck, man. Anything Bill Paxton's in is like immediately hilarious. He gets his ball squeezed like right off the bat. Like everything's his specialty. Like luck is my specialty. Like surveillance is my specialty. Like he's just so fucking enthusiastic about everything. And again, he goes out like a complete G. And yeah, I'm just gonna go with Jerry. I guess is his name, which shows how much I really connected with the character.
Bill Paxton. It doesn't matter. That's what it is.
They call him the Lone Ranger, so that's all I could ever think of. Like they're like, oh, he's the Lone Ranger from so and so. But I like that little speech that I almost called him Donald Glover. Jesus, Danny Glover has
Donald Glover's dad. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Has with him where he talks about the door swings both ways, and it scares me that like you requested to be transferred down here. Like I think they do a lot with that character, and he's fun. Yeah, doesn't make it through, but it's okay.
And it's crazy. I had forgotten because at the end of this movie we get that these universes are connected. I was like, is this guy's last name the same as Bill Paxton's character from Aliens? And it's like, nope, not at all. Just the same actor, completely unrelated.
He does share the same last name as another character, Lambert, which is weird.
Yeah. So, I thought it was like, is that his great-great-grandfather? Yeah. No, it's just a random coincidence.
I don't want to spoil too much, but they do kind of do some stuff like with that in like other movies, which is kind of fun.
I don't remember that, so that'll be fun to get to.
Yeah. All right. So next question. This is going to be a very interesting one. Does it hold up?
Fuck yeah, it does. I mean, like,
I think in a lot of ways, yes. Like, right, like, it's still an enjoyable movie, right? Like, I think like you can pop this on and like have fun with it, right? Like, obviously you're a newbie to it, and like you had a good time. It sounds like, George, for the most part.
Yeah. I think it holds up. I mean, it's simple. Like, is it entertaining today? Can you show it to someone today? Now, I don't know about about watching it multiple times, because it is, you can only get the shock factor, the shock value just once, right? Like I could see it being you can getting a kick out of watching someone else watch it, for the first time. That might have been funny for you guys as well. But like, I'm good. Like, I don't need to experience that again. Like, it wouldn't do,
every couple of years I still fire this up. Like, that's me personally.
Yeah.
I think like the stuff that is kind of weird is like it's set in 97, and like we touched on it a little bit. Like LA is like a fucking like borderline like hellscape, right? Like they're kind of trying to do like a little bit of a RoboCop thing here, where it's like crime is so bad that like the cops are getting their ass kicked, and like it's like almost post-apocalyptic, but like not quite. Like we see like like the police are just outmatched by like gangs, like in the opening scene, and there's like all this talk about how it's a war zone and people are like kind of fed up with it and stuff like that, which is just a weird choice, other than being a vehicle like for like why the Predator would want to come here, right? Like it's like, oh, like, well, this is a dangerous like place and time. But I don't know that stuff holds up as much, where it's just like, why did anyone think that like things are in 7 years going to be that bad? I know like big cities, there's always crime. Like I was too young in 1990 to know, like, if I was 4, so if LA like crime was on a trend to maybe become that bad, maybe that's why like the
amount of it's not crime, it's actual warfare. Like they legit have military grade weapons, grenade launchers, and they're just murdering police. And the police stations are filled with hundreds of people at all times.
Yeah.
And everybody has weapons. Everybody in the world's like, I got a gun, because there's like, it's almost post-apocalyptic, like you said. And it's just in the background for some reason.
This was made in what, 90?
1990, yeah.
I mean, it's not that crazy if you think about it. 2 years later, you had the LA riots, right? Which were pretty awful, right? Pretty intense and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's not crazy to think, but I do think that's the weaker part of the movies, right? Like of this movie is some of the plot, some of the setting stuff that doesn't really make sense. Like even, I mean, I love this guy back here, but I mean, really that's stupid. Colombian, Jamaican gang wars in California
instead of
like,
Florida.
Florida makes way more.
Like it just makes no fucking sense, right? Like, you know, like these guys are fighting out in California. You know,
I'm about to spit out my beer.
Yeah, like
it's like the more I think about it, it's like
yeah, like there's a lot of stuff that is just silly. It's just like, you know, where just a lack of imagination and creativity, right? It's just like you may as well have just, you know, just made some shit up. Like, I don't know, why wouldn't you go with Mexican gangs or just local gangs? Like why Jamaican and Colombian stuff? And then you got the voodoo stuff. Like it just doesn't make sense. But it's the thing is like when you're talking about it holding up or not, I feel like whether you can enjoy this movie says a lot about you as a person, right? Like if you don't enjoy this movie, you're kind of a snob. It's because you're a snob. You're looking at these little these inconsistencies and weak storytelling, weak things, right? And then you're harping on that. But if you just take this movie for what it is, it's a blast. Like you can't not be entertained by watching this for the first time. If you go in, not isn't even a matter about expectations, but just, I mean, at the end of the day, you're talking about a movie with this alien that has all this equipment and just hunts people for fun. Like get over yourself if you have an issue with that stuff in the movie. You know, like I wouldn't expect this if this was like a World War II movie and you had all these kind of plot holes and stupid things with the setting. That wouldn't make any sense. But for what this movie is, like this movie's fun and it can hold up. Unless it's just not your cup of tea and you can't get over some of those little issues. I mean, they're big issues, but who cares, man? like
I feel like you know what you're signing up for. Like if you're going to see the sequel to Predator, like you know, it's like,
well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I totally agree with that one because this could not be any more different than the first movie.
Yeah, first Predator was very mystery and tried to be serious. Like, oh, we're being murdered, and this one is like, let's go wild.
Yeah, the first one, I feel like I could see people being upset that this movie kind of just goes apeshit from the first one. But when you just look at it as a standalone film, kind of, you know, like just kind of take this for what it is, like it's a fun ride, man. It's a fun fucking ride. Like just enjoy it, you know. I wonder what's gonna happen next. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, we have 2 Alien films after this, and then like then they'll meet up. So you'll find out soon enough. So favorite scene of the film, and again, I'll go first if nobody else has something that like stands out. Mine is definitely like a bit of a cheat, but it's because like, again, like the last 20, 30 minutes of this film are kind of like one continuous sequence, but I think this has such a strong end, like to the, like once they kind of throw off like everything that's kind of bogging the film down, which is really just like plot that is all these little loose threads, like, the revenge shit, the government shit, like basically once Danny Glover takes the Predator to the rooftop and they start fucking duking it out, to like the whole chase at the end to the final sequence where they fight, I think is all awesome. Like it's funny, it's exciting, it's suspenseful, and like I just think they nail that entire sequence. So that's my favorite thing. I mean, the Predator like setting off the bomb and then like him just slicing off his hand and he's falling down, his toenails are creating sparks and shit, like, and he goes in the lady's apartment, like all that shit is just like is great. It's fantastic. Calls him pussy face, as we mentioned. Yeah. I mean, like, yeah. So that's my favorite. It's just like really that whole like last like sequence I think is spectacular.
For me, it's the train sequence, because I feel like that particular scene just encompasses a little bit of everything that's going on with this movie, everything that's wrong with the movie, everything that's good about the movie, and obviously the suspense. Like you got these cops just firing into a subway full of people, just popping shots off, which is just, again, it's another nod to the beginning of the movie where it's just fucking complete madness. Like that would never happen. Right? Just firing off shots left and right with no regard. I mean, you've got Bill Paxton's character like holding on one thing right here, popping shots off in the other. Like it's just crazy. But I thought it was a good sequence because if like you felt like a lot of suspense in there. You know, you couldn't see what the hell was going on. Everyone in there is freaking out. Everyone's got a gun. It's just all in all, just crazy, and all amplified by how sweaty everyone was too. Yeah. You know, like I don't know what's going on in this future LA. Maybe it's the heat that drives everyone crazy, you know? So I thought that was a pretty cool scene because it was like in a short sequence, a short few moments of that movie, you can kind of get a little bit of everything that this movie is about, the good, the bad, and everything in between.
Awesome. How about you, Adam?
Let's see. For me, it would either be Chris, you took a good part because that last part is definitely the best part of the movie. Specifically, again, I love everything in the ship. But for me, another thing that's really cool is the entire government, like we get revealed what Gary Busey's actually doing, and then everything in the warehouse. Just because, again, that stuff means something in the future and for the past. And I like how it's, we know that there's a thing here and we need to capture this. And like the government knows way more than anybody ever lets on. And people have a vested interest in these otherworldly beings. So I like all that. Again, him going through the different spectrums. That's when he pulls out all his gadgets. That's when we get when the government's trying to do. Gary Busey's there. So that's a fun time. So yeah, I like the scene a lot.
That's
for what it means for the lore.
The bit that makes the most sense in all the jumbled everything is like, that's the one consistent thread is like, why are they here? Like, why are these government goons like always interfering? And it's like, oh, well, of course, like they know that this thing is here and like they're aware of its capabilities and they're tracking it, right? So like that's why they're taking over every crime scene. Like that's probably the thing that makes the most sense in like this entire movie is like the fact that you would have.
That's when they bring up Arnold.
Yep.
Yeah, that's when they bring up Arnold because they're like, oh, this happened 10 years ago. We know that there's this thing out here. We need to, this thing is valuable to us.
Indeed. Yeah. No, I like that. We get just the weird like silver spacesuits and like the radiation dust and fucking like the big fire extinguishers that they're trying to freeze them with. And like, yeah, I mean, it is like peak like early 1990s like sci-fi like goodness. Like I really I enjoy all that stuff. And Adam Baldwin as like the heavy, he always plays the heavy and shit, like is fun too. Like he's kind of like the lackey that's talking to him on the radio, and you could tell he like worships the Gary Busey character. And yeah, it's a good time.
So I'm gonna add lore because I believe in the first Predator they say it's specifically hot because of like El Nino, I believe is the thing that they reference in that movie.
And the second one is hot because of El Scorpio. No.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. It's just like, you know, because the Predator very specifically goes to places that are hot. It likes heat. It likes humid climates. It's also in a place, you know, 10 years from going from Central America to LA. I'm assuming El Nino, because that's the Pacific Ocean, like that whole area, that side of the continent. You know, maybe that's why they're like, oh, it's in the future and it's super hot because El Nino is affecting us. And that's the reason the Predator's here. That's and also because there's gangs and there's people for him to hunt.
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I never thought about that. Like, yeah, I mean, climate change would be kind of a cool, like, you know, added element to it as well.
Because I'm looking at the history of El Nino and the occurrences, and it, you know, seems to have a pretty consistent, like every 5 or 7 years it'll happen. So maybe that lines up with the Predator showing up. They're like, oh, it's about to be hot in LA. Let's get down there and figure out what's going on.
I think also the less exciting explanation is that like that's where they happen to be filming the movie.
Oh, so 100%. That's the actual reason.
So they're like, well, yeah, no, but that, I mean, that is really, really kind of cool to consider, like, you know, that like the weather patterns too, with the hunting.
Oh, talking about that going, because, you know, they filmed the first movie in like the Mexican jungle, and then they switched to, you know, a city and normal. The effects on the Predator look so much better in this movie. There's a little more time, and they can actually use green screens now instead of like trying to force it into a green 100%. Environment. It looked 100 times better.
I love the fake out of this movie, like of like the jungle, like you have like the beaches and the jungle, and then it's like, oh, you're in the Hollywood Hills, and then like boom, there's LA. That's a cool opening shot.
And they use the theme so much. Even when the Predator's not around, they'll use the Predator theme just like 100 times in the movie.
Yeah, just in case you forgot like what it sounded like.
Dun 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 dun. And it's just Bill Paxton in a bar. Dun 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 dun.
I mean, hey, look, shout out because none of us had it, but the opening of this movie is fucking bananas too. Like that opening shootout, like and then like the subsequent kind of like up through the building and shit, like it is a hell of a way to start a movie. Like it just goes right for it. There is no setup. It's basically like, oh shit, like there's a gunfight with the cops and then the Predator shows up and just wipes everybody out. Good shit. All right, so final like main topic is what is your favorite new addition to the series slash lore slash world building? Like what is your favorite? I feel like there's like a very obvious one like here with this one, so you could say that if you want. I mean, the obvious thing, right, would be like the fact that like the crossover, like this is like the first hint of that, right? Like we all agree. So pick something that's not that, because like I feel like it's so fucking obvious that would be.
If not picking that, I feel like it's all things that we've brought up, so we might hear them again. So rather than bring up my own, I'm gonna steal Adams, which is the government's involvement, right? Like now, I mean, no surprise, right? Like the fact that the government's in it, no surprise they want to use it to their benefit and they want to harness this power. Very classic trope in any of this movie of this nature, right? They want to use it, they want to mess with things that they shouldn't be messing with, and people pay the price for it, like happens all the time. So that was a good addition because it gives it another side of things. And it's kind of like again, it's not until the end where it ties into the other movies, but it's kind of the same shit that's going on with the alien stuff, right? And the colonies, it's going like so much further into the future, right? So it's just a common theme that the suits and the bigwigs getting involved in things that they shouldn't be, when they should just be kind of eliminating threats and whatnot instead to do this.
I like it. Adam, how about you?
Yeah, it's the thing I already said, but I'll repeat it. I like that there is groups of predators and there's a hierarchy and there's elders and there's like a structure to what they do. It's, in the first two movies, we only see it's like, oh, there's one of them hunting. I guess it likes to hunt people, but it's like, no, there's society, there's culture, there's more to the predators as actual characters, and that's cool. And again, I just like the elder and that they tie that in with the pistol and all that. So I like how, kind of like how we got in Aliens, where it's like, oh, these things are actually intelligent and they have a leader. Same thing here. It's like, it's not just some random dude in a spaceship killing people. It's like, there's a reason he's here. The trophy hunters, you've got to earn your way up in society by hunting, and that's a cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, think both of you guys nailed it, like with the picks there. I mean, we've learned just so much more about like the predator like race. Like it starts with a Y. I always forget like what the actual, like there's an official name for the creature that nobody really uses except for like super dorks, but yeah, I mean, like so for me, like it's the kind of how they expand on the moral code. Like I love the fact that you find out that Leona is pregnant and it doesn't kill her. Like you see it, like the scans, there's a scene with the kid in the cemetery where he's got a gun, but like the predator is like, oh, go ahead, George.
Yautja.
There you go. Yeah, I knew it started with a Y. But yeah, you see the kid in the cemetery with a gun. It's like, oh, he's armed, and like it targets in, and then he's like, hold on, nope, it's not real, and like off he goes. So yeah, I think kind of like the expansion on the moral code is cool, because it's not just like a mindless killing machine like an alien would be. Like an alien's just gonna fuck you up. Like if you're around, like it's just gonna fuck you up or take you back to the hive and make you like, oh, it's like the predator has a little bit more like judgment with like why it's doing what it's doing. So I thought that was cool. Yeah, we got more of that. Also, you see the group of like elders at the end like could easily overpower Danny Glover, but it's like, hey, it's not really a fair fight. Like, hey, this guy like went up against like the hunter that was out and about. Like it retreated to its place. He killed it fairly. Like here's a trophy, right? Like we're giving you a trophy to kind of commemorate your victory, and like they let him go, which is kind of cool.
One thing I will say about the lore, I guess this thing about lore, I think this is really the only movie that does it. I like Danny Glover as an actor, but it makes no sense to me how Danny Glover beats the Predator. I'm sorry.
Well, we talked about that, like, right? Like, we're like,
it makes no sense. No.
Like, how do you go, like, because, all right, he's supposed to be 50. I don't know how old he actually was, but in, like, Lethal Weapon, like, he's supposed to be, like, inching towards retirement, which is, like, 3 years before this. Like, he's supposed to be 50. And like, you know, he's a cop, like in LA, like, you know, good cop, like seems like he's good at what he does, but like
ain't that good if that's how the city's looking.
You go from like Arnold Schwarzenegger is like a Green Beret, like, and he's fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger, to like Danny Glover. Yeah, like, I mean, it is a little dubious.
He takes his shirt off. He's not like weak looking, like he looks like he's in shape, but it's nowhere near what Arnold was, and Arnold struggled so hard. Yeah, and this dude just like
it's not just Arnold. Not just Arnold. They had a whole team. Yeah. You know, a whole team plus the mercenaries that were there, you know, like,
yeah,
that's what bothered me as a kid. I like what we get out of it because, again, we get cool weapons. There's things in this movie that we get to because of Danny Glover's character, but it just makes no sense how this 50-year-old cop takes out a Predator.
It's you know, it's revenge. Revenge is a powerful motivator. You know,
the most powerful, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, hey, like we said, I think at the top of the show, you analyze this too much and it starts to crumble. But like, you know, for pure fun, adrenaline, yeah, it's a good movie. It holds up. Like, it's entertaining. You know, I don't know if I would call it a good. If somebody was like, "Hey, is Predator 2 a good movie?" Like, I don't know. What would you say? Is Predator 2 a good movie?
No, it's not.
No, do you like fun though?
Yeah, yeah. It's like are some of those Transformer movies, some of the Fast and, are they good movies? Like, for me, a movie is it's a film, a feature film. Like, you know, it's a form of art. No, this isn't an entertaining movie and a good experience. Hell yeah, man.
I would say for its genre, it's a good movie. Like, it's a good movie within its genre. But like, if you want like good overall, like, meh, like, not really. But who cares? It's fun as fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to me, you're asking me if it's a good movie. Is it a good movie? It's got to stand. It's got to hold up to all movies, right? And fuck no, it doesn't. Like, not even fucking close. But is it you know, among the wildest movies and most entertaining movies? Yeah, it is. And at the end of the day, like, this is what movies are. Movies are entertainment. It's one aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
You know, storytelling, not great. You know, writing, not great. Acting, it's some are better than others, right? Like, but it's entertaining, and that matters. Arguably, that's the most important factor, right? When you're making something for profit, right? It's a movie that's supposed to make money. You know, is it entertaining? Hell yeah, that's arguably the most important thing. Is it winning any awards? Probably not. No, but had a good time, you know.
Maybe VFX back in the day, like,
yeah, for sure. It definitely moved things. It moved the needle, right? Which is, at the end of the day, the majority of movies, that's what their intent is, right? You know, like, there's the handful of movies that win Oscars and, you know, don't have a whole lot of mainstream appeal, but this movie probably did. You know, I'm sure it did. I'm sure it made a ton of money. I'm sure it was pretty popular. You know, so
I remember, like, this was probably the last of Alien 3, like, so the one that's coming up, like, would have been the last, but amongst the last, like, of the VHS era of stuff where, like, you know, my cousins and I would like rent, you know, Alien and Predator movies, and like, this is one that it was like a favorite because, I mean, there's boobs, you know, like when you're like a 12-year-old like boy, like,
yeah,
important. Super amount of violence, lots of graphic language. Like, I mean, it ticked all the boxes for us as like 12-year-old adolescent boys. And like, plus, I mean, it had that fantasy factor, right? Like, where, like, I mean, I know there was like a Predator 2 like game for Sega, maybe SNES. But like, thinking back, like, if we had technology now, like, I would, like, if I had been that age, like, with like video game technology, I would have loved like a Predator like video game, like no doubt, like, you know, at that age, like, just cool. A lot of cool stuff to play around with. So yeah. Up next we have Alien 3. Interestingly enough, David Fincher's first film. So like, director of Seven and Zodiac, a few like Mindhunters, like he's the creative force behind that. And we'll talk a little bit more about it, but 1992 film from David
the assembly
Fincher.
cut as well, correct?
Assembly cut, yeah. That's because it's the closest like thing to like what his original vision was. Wasn't what people saw in theaters. I think like we're far enough removed where I think it's still probably the best version to watch, since that was the intent, right? Like, and is considered to be the definitive now. So, you get to see a young Tywin Lannister as well, George. So that's interesting. So if you want to see him, like,
he was young. He just seems like one of those guys that was just born like that. He was
bald,
born 50.
Still very much bald. I mean, there's like a reason. There's a reason behind it. I want you to go in blind seeing this, but like, yeah, he's very much bald in that. But yeah. So stay tuned. We'll watch that, and sometime within the next week, I think we're gonna try to quickly record our reaction.
Not try. So, we gotta get back on this. We're gonna watch this today. This is the June 27th day of the recording. We are gonna watch it today, and we will record our show and have it released no later than the second week of July.
Oh no! I was thinking this week. Like,
I mean, this is the first week of July, kind of. July 1st is on Thursday.
Fair play. I like that. All right. So anyway, until next time, thanks for listening. We'll have our ranking in another episode after that. So another 2 episodes. We'll check in, and
after Resurrection, we
oh man. Oh, I don't want to say anything, but man, yeah, it's a hell of a time to break it down and do another ranking. But yeah, thanks for listening. We will catch you on the flip side. Bye.
Peace.